Thank you for coming back to the student loan repayment presentation. Last month we were talking about getting student loans and keeping those costs down. So I just want to reiterate how important it is to keep the cost of school down because things have really changed dramatically over the last 12 years. The cost of education has gone up 62%, incomes have gone down, and financial aid has decreased. So it's we want to just make sure you understand we feel it's really important to keep those costs as low as possible. And now today we're going to talk about after you have the student loans or the Parent Plus loans, how do you pay those off? And today Pete is going to take the presentation and he'll lead us through everything, and then we'll have some time for questions and answers. So, Pete?
Thank you, Jenny. As Jenny reiterated, this is kind of like the second part of the series. The first one was as your child is going to school, what to expect, how to expect it, what she should do as far as student loans and things like that. Now your child has either graduated, or you have graduated, or you're done with school, and now what do you do with all that debt? Many of you, perhaps all of you, have put your loans into deferment, or in others, it's just in a stasis where it's just on hold and it's collecting interest. The presentation today will talk mainly about federal loans, okay? We don't deal a whole lot with private loans because there's not a whole lot we can do with private loans. We do and will work with you if you need help, talking to the loan people or anything like that when it comes to private, but today is mostly about federal. As you all know, we're part of FISC. FISC is a Financial Information Service Center. As soon as you come in entrance number 2, our door is immediately to the right. And we're not a scary people, so if you have questions, feel free to pop in on us. And any one of the counselors can answer your questions when it comes to student loans. At FISC, we take the holistic approach to dealing with student loan debt. Now, when you're talking about, you're struggling, you want to start your student loan payments up, but there might be another part of your life that you're struggling in also. You might have credit card debt, high interest rate credit card debt. You may have some medical debt. You may have other debt that you deal with that affects paying your student loan debt. So what we do is we review your entire financial situation, not just so we sit down and we look at the whole picture. We look at your income, we look at your debt, we look at the way you manage your money. We prioritize your debt. Student debt may not be the most urgent need at the present time. It may make the most sense to keep it in forbearance and then deal with your other debt first so that you can increase your take-home pay, and then with that take-home pay you might be able to deal with your student loan debt. And then explore all debts do you currently have: auto loans, credit card, medical debt, and other unsecured debt. First thing you should do is create a spending plan. Now you're probably wondering what a spending plan is. Well, a spending plan is a nice way to say budget. Budget has a negative connotation to it, whereas spending plans have more of a fun connotation, spend. I'd rather spend than budget, either way. So what we do, know your spending behaviors and habits. We sit down with you and we talk about that. We look at that. Where do you tend to spend most of your money? Identifying your net monthly income. You may not exactly know how much you make a month. And when we talk about spending plans or budgets, we sit down and we look at, the whole picture and how to figure out everything when it comes to that. Then you prioritize your expenses. You subtract your expenses from your income, and then you put a plan in action. And just as it says, review and adjust the plan. It's never set in stone. Your budget, your spending plan continually changes as life changes. I know for my sake, as a matter of fact, tonight when my wife and I go home, we're going to go see a guy from Thrivent to talk about retirement. That word is starting to come into my vocabulary because I'm starting to get to that age, and so is my wife. Or some of you in this room are just starting to have kids. So your circumstances when it comes to spending plan or budgets is totally different than mine. And that's what we do. We review, adjust as life goes on. And that's the way you should approach it, especially when it comes to student loans. Now, again, there's two different types of loans. There's your federal and there's your private. Now, I'm not going to go through all this, but the biggest thing about federal versus private. Federal, there's many, many, many more options when it comes to repaying those loans, and the government tends to be a little more forgiving and a little more understanding when it comes to repayment. Private loans, you get them from private institutions. They have strict guidelines that you need to follow. In most cases, when you're taking out student loans, and we talked about this before, no repayment until graduation, or you leave school, or you're less than half time. Fixed interest rates, no interest on subsidized loans, no credit checks, no cosigner, things like that. Whereas private loans, you may require payment while still in school. Variable interest, some greater than 18, not subsidized, may require an established credit record, may need a cosigner. Now, if your son or daughter is just coming out of school, out of high school, and you may have to dip into the private loan sector, I can guarantee you that they're going to ask one of the parents to cosign. I can pretty much guarantee that. So, but the good news on that front is once your son or daughter is done with school and you establish a good payment history after a year, you as a parent can get it to where it gets into their name only. That's a positive thing when it comes to private loans. You can get it signed over to your son or daughter, so they're the ones who are going to take care of it. And then it cannot be consolidated, or forbearance or deferment options are not available. And I shouldn't say that. There may be, depending on who your lender is and who it is. Now, if you remember on the first one, Ginny and I talked about make sure that you go to a lender that's local. That's one of the reasons to go to a local one is if they're local, they may be more sympathetic, and you may be able to work out a forbearance or deferment if your economic situation is dire. Repayment plans. When we're talking about federal loans, there's many options when it comes to repayment plans. So the biggest thing that you want to know is, especially new graduates, and after there's a grace period from when you graduate to when you're expected to start paying on that. That's a key time to figure out exactly what you're going to do. Are you going to defer? Are you going to possibly qualify for one of these prepayment plans? The biggest thing is you have to investigate, you have to look into it. One of the things we do at FISC is we can help you with that. We have a program now that you can come see us and we can get you, we can talk to you about your budget and things like that, but we can also get going where we can see what you qualify for or what your son or daughter qualifies for on any of one of these plans. Key points. Subsidized, unsubsidized, FFEL. Now, FFEL loans are no longer really in existence. If you went to school prior to 2007, chances are you may have had a FEL loan, or FFEL, plus or FFEL consolidated. Another key point is Parent Plus loans are eligible for the repayment plans. Now, if you did a Parent Plus loan for one of your son or daughters, you can qualify for one of these repayment plans. And depending on but it all depends on your income and where you're sitting financially. Payments are 10, 20, 25 years. Now, 10 years is your pretty much standard repayment. Federal government says you take out this money, we expect you to pay it back in 10 years. But if you run into something where you're financially unable to pay it, you're unemployed, you become disabled, that's where these other payment plans come into action. All repayment plans have contingencies on your eligibility. Discuss your options with your lenders. Now, and I'm going to go through this in a little bit, but you should all know who you took your loans out with. Chances are it's probably Great Lakes or I can't think of the other ones. Nelnet and what? WAG. Yep. Student loan deferment. Deferment is a period of time when the repayment of principal and interest of a student loan is temporarily delayed. During deferment, interest does not accrue on subsidized loans or Perkins loans. Now there's 3 types of deferment. Economic hardship would be you're still trying to look for a job or you're out of a job and you fall under, you're just not making any money. Unemployment. And then if you get called up for active, if you're in the reserves and you get called up for active military duty. Forbearance. Forbearance is the discretionary postponement of student loan payments by a borrower's lender. Now this forbearance usually happens after deferment or when your deferment ends and you still cannot pay it, you can get into forbearance. But when you're in forbearance, interest on the loans start really accruing. And during forbearance, it increases the amount that is owed. However, if a borrower has experienced financial hardship and is unable to make payments, forbearance is an option. Now that's a short-term solution because you have to take a look at something. You have to think about something. My daughter is going to be a sophomore this year at Ripon. And one of the things we did this summer with her loans is she paid the interest on her loans. And in 1 year of her student loan, she accrued over $800 in interest alone. So just think about that. We're talking about interest accruing when you're in, you've graduated from school. Probably the average is about $25,000 for the average student to take out in loans. So you think about that. And if you didn't pay any interest on it, you're talking at least $800,000, $2,000 a year. So you're probably already up to $30,000 by the time you graduate. That includes interest. So then you're sitting down and you've already deferred some. So chances are you have some unsubsidized loan, you add a little more on to that. So if you, yes?
Can you just say what unsubsidized versus subsidized?
Sure. Subsidized federal loans are loans while you are going to school and not paying, do not accrue interest. Okay? Unsubsidized loans are federal loans that do accrue interest. You don't have to pay them back right away, but they do accrue interest during the life of the loan. Okay? And chances are, my wife and I, 2 incomes, most of my daughter's federal loans are unsubsidized. She gets a little bit of subsidized, but not a whole lot. So then what we did, and we're going to insist on this every summer, is for her to pay at least the interest so that doesn't build up as time goes on. And that's what forbearance does. So even though it's a good short-term solution, it's not good for your long-term financial health. Mandatory forbearance. Lenders are required to apply forbearance in the following situations: serving in a medical or dental internship of a residency program, as if those folks don't have enough student loans on. Is 20% or more of the borrower's monthly income. Qualifies for the Teach Loan Forgiveness. Now, the Teach Loan Forgiveness is for students that are coming out of college, that are going into teaching, that are going into low-income schools. There's a list out there that if your son or daughter is going to teach, and I'm highly encouraging my daughter to do this, is to give 5 years of her life somewhere to teach in a low income. Now, you may think it's mostly inner cities. It's not. Menasha School District is considered a low income district. Certain schools in Appleton, I think certain elementary schools are under that program. It all depends on how much free lunch they give, and I don't know what the formula is, but there is a list out there. So it's just not inner city schools. Qualifies under the U.S. Department of Defense Repayment Program. Now, your son or daughter comes out of school, goes to work for Uncle Sam, may qualify under that program. And then, member of a National Guard, activated by the governor. Now, I don't know if you know of anybody who may have been just called up to go down to Milwaukee. You know, they would qualify for that. Discretionary forbearance. A borrower may request discretionary forbearance due to financial hardship, illness, or other unacceptable terms to the lender. Now, they're pretty flexible when it comes to that. And one of the things I want to encourage you, if you talk to friends, neighbors, and all that, and you know they're struggling financially and they have a ton of student loan debt, the biggest thing I would encourage you is to communicate with the lenders. The lenders, if you communicate with them, they're going to be very flexible. I've worked with numerous folks now that have just kind of ignored it. And they're in a situation now where they're being garnished because they've ignored it for so long. Okay? You can get on a rehabilitation program and then you can get back into the good graces by going on one of those programs. But you just can't ignore them. So encourage these people to just at least talk to the lenders, explain the situation, and they're going to be pretty flexible when it comes to repayment or getting you on a program. Many of these programs, if you're in financial straits, they're going to put you on an active program, and guess what your payment's going to be? It's going to be zero. Even though you're still going to be accruing interest and you're going to be doing that, in the eyes of the government, you're in their good graces and you're still in a program, and the clock starts ticking on that 20, 25 years. Now, 25 years paying student loans, I know most of us don't even want to think about that. But the biggest thing is get it going. And once that clock is up, the rest is forgiven. Okay? So those are the biggest key and biggest factors. Now, we're getting into you got a whole ton of student loan debt. You've gone to school for 4 years. Knock on wood. I have a friend whose son is on the 7-year plan. But hopefully you get done, your son or daughter gets done in 4 years. There could be a situation where each semester you take out a federal loan, it's a different loan. It doesn't add on to the old loan, it's a brand new loan. So if you have subsidized and unsubsidized loans, that's 2 loans each semester, so that's 4 a year. Now Denise, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You multiply that by 4, that's 16 separate loans. How are you going to keep track of the payments on that? That's where consolidation comes in. Now, consolidation loans is combining them all into one low payment. And one of the nice things about consolidation is you can get it to one lender. Your other loans may go to Great Lakes, it may go to Navient, and it may go to, Nelnet. It may go to a number of different loans depending on where the school is and who the school is. If your son or daughter, say, go to 2 years at UW Fox Valley and then decide to transfer to Madison. Well, Madison may have different federal loan guidelines than UW Fox Valley, so there might be some differences there. But consolidating into one loan, into one interest, and one payment would be probably the first step. There's a term limit on direct consolidation loans, and as you can see, when you consolidate them, the number of years it takes to repay them, what the expectation is. Now, when we're talking about direct consolidation, you can consolidate your loan and then put it into one of those programs, even lowering your payment more, therefore freeing yourself up of income to be able to live life a little more comfortably, a little more freer, and maybe, being able to live life the way you thought you would after you graduated from college. And that's what this allows you to do. One of the biggest crises when we're talking about student loans is the housing market. So many of these kids have taken out student loans, and their payment is equal to what a house payment would be. So they aren't going to be able to buy a house and pay off their student loans. So those are the things that you really have to take a look at, and that's one of the reasons why the government has come up with some of this stuff. Options for private loans. If interest rate is high, check with your credit union or bank. Other loans may have lower interest rates. Now, there's nothing to say that you have student loans, say you got $10,000 of student loan debt, private student loan debt, and you come out of school and it's at 13%. And then you can go to a credit union or a bank, and they're offering personal loans at 2%. It would make sense to take that money out and do that so that you can lower your interest rate and hopefully lower your payments. I've talked about this before. If you have to take out private loans, take it out at a local institution so that you can have a face, and things like that, so that you can have a relationship with them.
I have a question.
Yes?
Are those private loans tax deductible like a federal? I know the interest on a federal loan is tax deductible.
I think so. Any interest paid on a student loan is tax deductible.
Okay, even private lender.
I believe so, yeah. I think she's right, yeah. I know that if you have a college student, and you're going to love this, we can claim her money that has been paid towards the college on our taxes, and then that helps your tax refund a little bit. That's one of the nice things about having a student in college. But you're still paying a lot of money. Yeah. What's it called?
It's the tuition,
Right.
There's a threshold on that too.
There is. Yeah, there is.
Still no, but it's like $2,500.
Right. And then again, make sure you to keep in contact with your lender, even if you inform them of the inability to pay. They are much more understanding, again, if you stay in communication with them than if you're not. Delinquency and default. Delinquency loans are considered delinquent if they are past due by even a single payment. So your son or daughter graduates in May. They have 90 days of grace period, it's called. Then after the grace period, it's 6 months, I think. Yeah, it's 6 months. And then after that 6 months, the lender's going to expect the first payment. And if you forget about that, you automatically go into delinquency. You can stay in delinquency for 270 days. Then you go into default. And that's when they start sending you letters. And one of the other things too that you want to be aware of is then collectors get involved. And I don't know about you, but some of these collectors are not nice. And they get pretty aggressive with you. So you want to avoid that, but default is when they start getting other entities involved. Yes?
You also mentioned, or I will. Even if, again, as Pete mentioned in the beginning, delinquency can happen if you didn't graduate. So you have student loans there, and it happens a lot when I worked in higher ed, where
Oh, good point.
they were in a 6-month grace, and they were. But then those payments start, if you're not in school anymore, you still have to pay. And then if you want to go back to school and you're in delinquency or default, you can't get any more federal aid.
Until you get that cleaned up.
Get that cleared up.
Yeah.
So keep in mind if you don't graduate either, or if you stop out for a while.
Right. Yeah, if you stop going to school or you become less than part-time, and less than part-time is considered less than 12 credits, right?
And yeah, down to 6.
6 credits.
You get just a modified
Okay.
version of loan.
So just be aware of that when son or daughter's doing that. If a loan is in default, there are rehabilitation programs offered for federal loans. In many cases, very reasonable payments can get loans back on track. I have a couple who are in default, being garnished. We got them on a rehabilitation plan, and you know what their payment is per month? It's $5. Government just required them to pay $5 a month for 9 months to get back into the good graces of their loan. Then once that 9 months hits, then you're going to get them to consolidate it and then get them on one of those payment plans. And the payment plans tend to be very reasonable depending on how much you make. Additional information, things that you really need to know now. I know we mentioned this in the last one. If you were here, but in order to deal with these things, you really need to know your FSA ID. If you don't have one, it's pretty easy to sign up for one. The NSLDS is the National Student Loan Database, is a site to exactly how many loans and the amount you have. This is needed when you decide to consolidate or go on a payment plan. And then student loans, the federal student aid is a website where repayments paperwork is stored, or where you can sign up electronically or get paperwork. Now, one of the nice things that we just are rolling it out now, within the last couple of days, is FISC has a program that we can assist you with in one sitting. You don't have to go searching around for these things. We can assist you with many of these things right here. Know that. But there's a fee involved. Just be aware of that. Again, here are the websites, and it's all on your handout. And then for FISC student loan information, this is our website. Just go to it, take a look at it, and it explains exactly what we can do for you or for your son or daughter. And
Pete, is that a live link that you can bring up?
sure.
I just want to kind of show people, because it tells you that there's 2 main options. There's the self-serve option, which takes you to a port that you put in some information. It actually interfaces with the National Student Loan Database, and your particular information, income, and all that other stuff, and then it spits out literally a report for you that says, these are your best options. want the full service, we can offer additional counseling then to go with that, tell you what that means. So those options, there is a fee. The report's $39.95 because it's an outside vendor, it's outside software, and that kind of thing. And then if you want to work with a counselor at FISC, to kind of just talk with the lenders and do some of that follow-up, then there's an additional fee. So
How do I bring that up?
you have it. You have it.
I did?
Yeah.
You had it, you had it.
Oh, it looks different on your screen.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Okay. I can't see it from here, that's why.
Pete, can you comment on since we work for a nonprofit,
Mhm.
and we have so many young people here?
Ooh, yes.
About the loan forgiveness plan for people
That's
who are
right.
nonprofit?
If you work for, it's called a public service loan forgiveness program. And basically what you do is you have to make 120 qualifying payments, and after that the remainder of it's forgiven. Now this is just federal loans, but it's a nice program. If you're in a situation, and most of us are not getting rich by what we do, we all know that. But one of the nice things is you could consolidate, get on one of these programs for 10 years while the clock is ticking, while you're working in a nonprofit, and after that, the rest can be paid off. Yes,
I just want to note, though, it doesn't have to be full-time work.
right, yes, oh, good point, thank you. Yeah.
May retroactively count payments, or is it as soon as you hand in the form?
If you can show that you've been working in a nonprofit for that whole time, then it can be retroactive.
It starts when you consolidate the loan, so the payments before that don't count.
No? Okay, well, thank you, Jenny.
So it starts when you consolidate and go on an income-based repayment.
Yes,
So are private loans also at like a 6-month grace period?
that's the lender's choice.
Okay.
You're gonna have to check on that. And that's, again, I can't reiterate enough, local is better. What's that? Now Perkins is federal,
Oh, that's federal, okay.
yes.
I don't know.
Now Perkins loans, I didn't go into Perkins because Perkins loans are type of loans for lower income individuals who get Perkins loans when they're going to school. They are kind of a special brand unto themselves. If you're thinking about consolidating your loans, you'll want to check your Perkins loans first, because Perkins loans have many, many more special forgiveness programs associated with it than the subsidized or the unsubsidized. Perkins is kind of a special, unique kind of loans unto themselves.
So they have better options.
They have better options. So you may not want to consolidate Perkins loans because
Pretty good
they have pretty good deals. Any other questions? Yes?
At one point, you said that it's pretty much a 10-year repayment. But then on another place, it says debt consolidation, 20, or 10 to 20-year repayment.
Okay.
So I'm thinking about my oldest daughter who, let's just say $30,000.
Mhm.
She's got like a 10-year repayment, and there's no like if, ands, or buts.
Well,
But
that's-
If she could go to 20, it would sure help.
Well, see, and that's what you want to see if you can qualify, if she qualifies for one of these programs. 10 years the standard repayment. You come out of college, you got a job, you start paying it, the government thinks 10 years. But if you have circumstances where, and a lot of young people, when they come out of school, aren't going to make their potential right away. You know, it's going to take 5 or 10 years for them to get up to their earning potential. So while they're in that lower entry-level position is when these programs would be most beneficial to them. It's not going to last 20 years, but if you can get on a payment plan, get in their good graces, and at least paying something towards them,
Right.
that's the key.
But it's not necessarily the income level. In her case, it's the fact that there's a car payment, there's
Right, and that's,
That's all that.
Right.
They base it on the wage.
well, it's, what's it called, Jenny? It's called,
The extended?
no, the part of your income, disposable income,
Oh,
right?
it's on your discretionary?
Yeah, discretionary income, thank you. So that's why it doesn't hurt to take a look at that.
Like when you apply for federal student loans too, they
Right.
consider just your income, basically.
Right.
Not your mortgage or any of the other
Right,
stuff.
right.
So your EFC is like $30,000. You're like, what?
And I know I had probably 20 years to repay.
Right,
Right after I got them, which, it's not always the best, but it certainly was helpful.
right. And that's why it's key to take a look at everything. You may not qualify, but if you consolidate them, you can get a lower interest rate. That even if that's the only thing you do, that can still be helpful.
And parents, this is most helpful. I was thinking of this when Pete was talking. If you don't want your kids looking back with you when they're 24, might want to take a look at all this first. Because it happens a lot. They can't afford to live on their own.
Right, especially when they first get
Another
them.
thing, collection agencies don't always tell people what all their options are. They may not reveal to you that you do have this option of consolidating and going on an income-based repayment. Even if you're delinquent, one way to get out of a default, if you haven't already done it, is to consolidate your loans. And that'll take you out of default. And the collectors don't always tell you what all your options are.
One thing you have to realize about collectors, the majority of them get 50 cents for, or not 50 cents, well, 50 cents for every dollar they collect. They get half. That's how they make their money. So they don't want to give up that cash cow. So they're not going to be always. Yes?
This is kind of a rookie question, I guess, but how do you actually physically consolidate your loans? Like, what do I need to do, or who do I need to talk to do that? I don't know how that works.
You come talk to FISC.
Well, I figured you'd say that.
Well, I don't have that up. Go out to the studentloan.gov. And they have all the information there. But first thing you have to do is have your FSA ID. You have to have exactly what loans you are. Let me give you a forewarning. If your loans are through Navient, chances are you're going to be talking to somebody in India, and they aren't going to understand what student loans are all about. Great Lakes, I've had excellent experience with Great Lakes. I've had experience with the majority of them, but Navient has not been one of them. Yes?
So what happens if you went to college and then, like, one time and then consolidated your loans, then you went back to college another time and had all new loans?
You-
So then, can you consolidate them again?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. If you consolidated them once and you're paying them, and then you get new loans for going to graduate school or whatever, yeah, you can combine them once you're done.
So everything that you talked about is also true for money you would take out to go to graduate school, not
Yep.
just undergraduate?
Yep, yep, absolutely. Now, how many of you were here for the first one? Those are the folks that had the $150,000, $200,000 student loan payments. They're the ones who went on spring break.
In graduate school.
In graduate school, yes. Any other questions? Well, we appreciate your time. I left some cards in the back if you want to come see any of us. We're more than happy to talk to you on a one-on-one basis. The simplest questions, don't be afraid to pop in on us. Oh, and Denise is going to be sending out a survey, so we would appreciate it if you filled it out and let us know how we did or how we can improve. We're always looking for ways to do that. Thanks for your time.
Well, that's what they, like I said, one is, and I said, well, what do you recommend? He said, well, they recommended that.